All right, so this is the final run for Strange Brigade. I have to make certain conclusions to the game itself, error correction, so on and so forth. And it's mostly for the beginning of when I originally started playing Strange Brigade. I didn't know certain things with regards to the game because obviously I'm not familiar with the company beyond the fact that I've played one or two of their games. So I did a little research into other people's review for the game thereafter I already played it to see their opinions on the game. And I also made sure I checked the time for when Strange Brigade was released. Also made sure I check exactly what certain things within the game based on its actually historical accuracy and time frame and the whole purpose of the game and what it stands for, so on and so forth. Um, and I originally started I was started from zero and I went all the way up to um 5.8, and I said this game's an overall six. So I think the best thing to do is to state from the beginning that this game isn't a six. After doing a little research, this game didn't come out 10 years ago. It came out like 4 years ago, 2018, 2017. Um, and then from then I realized, it came out after, like, say, Zombie Army 1 and 2, or during the time of Zombie Army 3. Um, so there really is no excuse for the reason why certain things are missing in the game. Customizations, uh, uh, weapon handling, the attachments to weapon, ability to see and read certain things in clear text rather than to read the scribblings. So I took a point off from that, from went down to 5.9. Then I took another point off, and I took it off for the simple fact that based on the info, this is mostly completely fictional. It doesn't have a lot of historical accuracy to it. It just used things from history and create this fantasy world. So it has no historic association whatsoever, other than things that were considered part of history. Whereas Zombie Army is associated with events of World War II. It has no attachment to any actually events or anything with regards to that. And probably wasn't intended to do so, but other than historic reference to the gods and the location in Egypt and so on and so forth. Um, yeah, but that's about it. And the reason I went down to a 5.8 is due to miscellaneous stuff. The devil's are in the details sometimes, and certain people who reviewed the game didn't. The company didn't show them much love for it, and most thing the company showed love for those that they sponsor towards reviewing their games or streaming their games, so on and so forth. But everyone who was going to give them free press or see how their enjoyment for the game, they didn't really care. And I understand the fact from a company point of view. But if someone was to give you free press, you would do that openly. You would say, sure, you want to talk good about the game, go ahead. Never. There's certain people, I'm pretty sure there's like more than 10 people probably did that, and they probably were never messaged or never contacted, blah blah blah, so on and so forth. But what I'm going to do right now, this is why I have it as a 5.8 game and not a 6 game that Metacritic has it up and other people have it higher. I believe this is a 5.8 and shouldn't go beyond that. And because this is a hit and miss, and it wasn't like it came out a long time ago. So I'm gonna go from 0 all the way to 10 to state the specific reasons why this is a 5.8. And when you go from 0 all the way to 10, it's in regards to everything. I'm not sure if certain people do their evaluations or reviews or whatever they do, or their opinions towards the game, towards everything, but I make sure I consider every factor as well. Not that it's needed, but I make sure if I'm going to archive something and record something, I make sure it goes into a record books of a game and then come back to it decades later to see, based on what I said, is it accurate towards a new game with regards to with the same company name, with regards to the same type of game. So if they ever make a Strange Brigade 2, I'll probably go back to this to see what they did right in the past, wrong in the past, and compare it to the new Strange Brigade if they decide to make a second Strange Brigade. Same goes for any game, to be honest with you. So from 0 to 10, 0 being what are the things that this game is a complete fail. And you give 0 to something if a game is a complete fail. This is not a complete fail. They got majority of everything right, so they already got a point for not failing and getting just the foundations correct. So it gets a point for just having the foundations of video games correct and put them in place to exceed past the 5 marker. And that mostly has to do with the game design itself. Now you can put the art, everything else around it. The foundations of game design was there, so I give it a point. And the foundations of game design is correct map placing, correct interactions, correct movements of characters, so on and so forth. But these are all detailed stuff. I'm just giving 1 point for the overall value of the game with regards to it actually getting things correct. Not then after you go into details of the additional stuff. So as a completed game, I give it a point for that. So from 0 to 1, 1 for completed game. I give it now another point 2 for the fact that its rollovers are correct. They're accurate. They move at the speed that you want to based on your controls. There's no lagging with regards to rollovers. I give it another point also for color management. See, because in the rollovers, you could just have standard rollers. They click from click from click from click, and there's no indication for that it's actually the one you're selecting. When it goes to one, it actually does a highlight of each, and that's also something to be considered. So the rollovers are correct, and also the indication of which is primary, secondary, or third is also correct. So they made sure to have the play button as highlighted as the greatest one, and they made sure the rollovers has a certain amount of tint, certain amount of opacity, a certain amount of brightness to it, and gradient fill to it. I mean, or drop shadow on it to show that this is the one that you're picking. So all that is accurate. They go at incredible speeds, and it's accurate. So that's another point for that. So I'm at point 2 now. And then there's also the fact of the color management of the game. The decided color management for this game is very good because it's based on the type of world, Egypt, and the type of color uses that we're using Egypt during those times. A lot of earth colors, a lot of greens, a lot of oranges, very rare purples. Mostly everything was foundation work. So, because most of the Egyptian artifacts, most of everything made in Egypt were made from the earth itself, and using molds. And scribblings were also done from pigmentations. So, with regards to primary pigmentations, there were always the major colors and the secondary, mostly secondary colors on the color wheel. So that's what they're using for this game to represent the type of game it is, the type of location it is, and the type of exploration it is. So, with regards to the use of colors based on the historical part of Egypt, that's correct. Um, so that's another point for that. That's a point 3 now. And then there's also the point 4 factor, which is the design of the Strange Brigade logo, which is the huge word you see right here, Strange Brigade, and then the different uh, grunge feel to the Strange Brigade word, as well as the symbol below it to show that okay, it's not just a word; it created a unique like pharaoh design to it, with eagles and a nice little design. But I'm not going to get into the design aspect. I'm just talking about the use of text usage now. So it's not just rollers; it uses the tech usage for the game. So it's very standout. It's very bold. It's very appealing. They could have used anyone, but I believe this one works the best. So that's a good one. So now I'm at a point 4. Now the point 5 would be the actual design of the logo themselves, or the actually artwork of the logos that you could see every time you load the game or add a different section in the game, whether it's the preloader or anything that's a stated logo design, like a physical drawing, a 2D drawing. and is pasted onto something within the game. That's a design in itself, an artwork. And so the artwork is very crisp, very defined, and done well, and placed well within the game that it doesn't stand out to the fact that it contradicts the game. So I gave it a point for that, so that's 5. Now the point 6 would be the fact of the backgrounds themselves. I'm not talking about the map painting. I'll get to that. I'm talking about the background usage of not the color usage, but the background usage of design for the game. I could have put the background, let's say for this front logo, anything in the background, and a different set locations. But they decide to use a specific set locations like forestation in order for their background design, and that also goes for different levels. The choice of levels or the background design, basically to show the type of environment that you're going to be playing in. So the rich vegetation, the Indiana Jones type jungle feel to it, it's very appropriate to the type of game it is, and to Egypt and the locations for caves and so on and so forth. So they throw a cave in there, they throw a waterfall in there, throw skulls in there, so to give it the adventure feel, which they did. So the choice of background design is also good, so I give it a point for that. Um, Now, when it comes to the detail of the background, such as the map painting, which is a different thing, I would say the use of color, the use of atmosphere, the effects, um, the the trees in the background. That's not the ones that are moving. They're actually map painting in connection towards the actually 3D model trees is very accurate, and it links and it syncs perfectly with the actual animated trees, which is a nice touch, and it works well. They actually look like trees, even though there is some map painting in the back. It's done with enough accuracy to make whatever the actually design 3D model of the trees works and connect with each other well, that they function accurately. So the map painting is good. The use of color for the map painting is good. Um, the the clouds, the drop in actually the tint of the sky itself doesn't look bright blue. It looks more with connection towards the game itself and how the feel of the game looks as a total. If it was a bright blue, bright, bright blue color for the sky, it would stand out more than anything else, which would contradict the actual surrounding environment. So for the map paintings of this game, I would say that they did a very good job for the map paintings, not just for the use of color, but the use of design for the map paintings in connection towards the 3D models themselves. Now for the point 8, I would give the point 8 for the actual use of the 3D models in connection with the map painting themselves. Those also flow smoothly, and if you look at the trees and the movement of the trees, if this is very similar or very close accuracy towards actual trees, like real trees, real type trees that are located within Egypt and stuff, and or trees that are in movement based on heavy wind. So maybe it might be a little too much movement and it's too animated, moving all the time to show like the rapid movement of trees or rapid movement of wind. But maybe it's a little too animated, but the fact that it's actually moving to show that it has life is accuracy, as well as the fact of the design of the trees and how they look, and in relations to how trees really look. That's actually done too. And then you have the little bird flying by, and then you have the waterfall, and all these little animated inclusions into the game to make the water look like real water, to make the trees look like real trees, and to make the humidity of the world sync with the actual map painting. That's also good. So that's a point 8 for that. Now the point 9 will be with regards to the actual. Now you go from all that, you go into the menu screen. So after you finish all that, you then go into the menu screen and see if the menu screen is done well. Now, the menu screen doesn't have anything to do with the rollers. The menu screen just has to do with the interaction of the menu itself. Do they function well? Do they serve the same purpose? Now the rollovers and everything, how they move back and forth, that's already stated. But the logic of the menu screen, the subtitles, the tutorials, the actual the privacy, the brightness of the game, increase the brightness, decrease the brightness, all the things that are needed for the foundation of the game. Are they there? The music, the effects, anything that might affect your experience. Is it in the game? Yes, it's in the game. As well as increased sensitivity and decreased sensitivity, invert, everything is there. Um, I wouldn't say 100% everything because it's not like this is an MMO game, so you can't have that many actually things to click off or things to have on with regards to interactions. Because even though it's multiplayer, it's not multiplayer to the detail of MMO. So that's a point 9 for the game. Now I'm going to get into the one territory. It's already emphasized everything else. The type of everything present within the game. So that was the point 9. The one territory will fall into the category of the use of actually designed for the menus themselves. They could have used anything, but what they decided to do is to use paper parchments with regards to where you find certain things. Now, it could have been a more vast improvement. It could have been like a book opening and then you go into a menu screen. But based on budget, I think that would have been extra animation rather than a static animation there. So now I think about it, I think I wouldn't actually put it at a 1 for this. I would probably still keep it at a 0.9 for this. But I would give it a 1 for the use of actually chosen the use of paper or use of journals and so on and so forth to represent the world itself. Such as if you go into acquisitions, the use of book, like a journal type book to show that you had collectibles, or for the map, they use like a huge paper map to show that you're actually going to open up a map to use a map. Same like this. Now, most map back in the days, you would just unfold the map. Like I said, I wouldn't give it a full 1 for this because there's no unfolding. The only unfolding happens when you look at your acquisitions. So, and it goes back and forth. I would say it is a 1, but there's certain things it's not a 1. So the use of interacting and having like the design being something that's more realistic towards the century is more accurate. Now, yeah, I'll say I'll give it a 1 for that. Now, based on everything I already said from the beginning of the game to where I am now, because I'm just doing this all over again, the 1.1 would be the inclusion of objects within the game to show that you've actually collected everything for as a full set. So how you know that you've collected everything once you go into acquisitions, it would say that 4 out of 4, 4 out of 4 that you've collected everything. And if you're missing something, it would show you that there's 3 out of 4. How do you know that you've actually collected everything? It would say a completed set. Completed set. When something says completed set, and it has that +1 sign and has the word completed set, you've known you collected everything. Otherwise, it wouldn't say anything at all. It would just say 3 out of 4, 1 out of 4, so on and so forth. So I like the fact that you know when you've had everything, even though it's stated that 4 out of 4. It actually gives you that indication that it's completed. You don't need to look at anything for the section as well, because maybe some people, I guess they wouldn't figure that 4 out of how it means that it's completed, but there's a verbal indication that you actually completed everything, as well as a written indication that you actually completed everything. So that's a 1.1 for the game. Now, 1.2 would be the actually character designs, because I already spoke on everything else. I guess you could say 1.3 would be actually the vegetation of the world. I mean, I already spoke on the model of the world, design of the world, how everything 3D interacts with the world. But I didn't speak on the fact of the type of usage, not usage of color, but usage of actually specific art vegetation and uses of certain vegetation of the world as use and the usage of certain inorganic and organic compounds actually in the world as well, or as well as human tools and designs. and placement of those things, because you could place them anywhere and they may look god awful, but if you place them at certain sections, it will look great. So the placements and usage of colors and usage of designs, like the skull in the background right next to the guy, um, not in the background, but to the right of the guy. You wouldn't notice that unless you actually look. You wouldn't notice the little cave underneath unless you look. Um, Obviously, you notice the little birds and everything, they're present and everything, but you would know certain details with regards to the world if you don't look carefully. So I appreciate the attention to details, and that's the 1.3 for that. And the 1.4 would be the character model designs, and the character models designs is very well done. The characters are well done. Um, each character looks different. Each character has a different setup design, a makeup design. Um, the features, they don't all look static. Their body forms, they all look different. Each body's forms look different, even though you can see that the same model was used for each character. They were able to channel those character models to look somewhat different in regards to size, in regards to bulk, in regards to elongation, in regards to facial features. So the scope and shape of the characters were all considered with regards to the game. Even though they might be standing in the same position, you could see the variations between the structures of the body and the structures of the face and the structure of the hair designs. So the creation of the character models were done well, and just the models of the overall character from the outside point of view, the external. From the Also from the external, the details with regards to the outside models, which is the rendering of colors on the characters, not the models themselves or the shape of the face themselves. That's also done well. So I give it a 1.4 for that, and then the 1.5 would be within the not just the gradients and the hair design and the follicles of the hair and the shadows of the hair. All this have to do with 1.4. But the 1.5 for the external usage is the usage of the design of the the clothing on the character, not the characters themselves. So the usage of clothing on the characters, each they look like clothing. They look like standard clothing, even though some of the clothing look like they're actually attached to the models of the character themselves. Some clothing actually look like the character is actually wearing over the character themselves. They don't actually look like it's actually fitted to the character. They actually look like products that are on the character, the models of the clothing on the character. So yes, they actually look like they're wearing clothing rather than the clothing is part of their existence, or part of their straight 3D model makeup. So that's a 1.5 for me. 1.6 for the character also be the actual uses of shade and shadows for the character. Now, um, now actual details on the character flesh, such as gradient and shadows and stuff. But actually, no, that's not 1.6. That'll stay at 1.5. I just said that. The 1.6 with regard to characters would be the usage of their extra items, such as weapons and so on and so forth. So I basically wouldn't say that it's part of a character model. I would say it's more part of the weapon design. So I guess from the character standpoint, I could take it back. I could give it a 1.6, but I took it back and I kept it on 1.5 because the hair looks kind of static on the characters. It doesn't look that detailed. It looks good, but it doesn't look that detailed, and that could be a budget issue. Now, the 1.6 has to do with the weapons themselves and the use of weapons themselves, the design of the weapons themselves, how the weapons they look. Do they look realistic? Do they look like actual weapons? Do they look like actual weapon model designs? I like the fact that they're going for a standard color usage, but it's not really about the color of the game, or the color of the weapons. It's actually the design and model of the each weapon. Each weapon looks different. Each weapon has a different feel to them. Even when you're using them, each weapon has a different model design to them. Each weapon have a different setup, a gradient to them, as well as each one of them, even though they all have the same shine to them, um, Actually, let me take that back. They all seem to have the same gradient. Each one of them have a different model design, and each one have a different of animation uh, uh, stock to them, and each one of them have a different feel when you're using them. Even though the shines and the gradients on them are pretty much the same, but the designs of the weapons are all different. The designs of the weapons all do different things. The design of the weapons all have different functions, and the functions and the design of each weapons are stated with below to the lower right. So when it comes to weapon designs, they all function differently. They all behave differently. They all have different amount of magazines. Some have higher fire accuracy. Some have lower fire accuracy. Some have lower reload time, faster reload time, so on and so forth. And so, with regards to the weapon design, that's which is the 1.6, I would now give it a 1.7 to the fact that you could now attach um, relics to them. So 1.7 would be to the ability to attach relics to them. So the simple fact that you could upgrade your weapon with relics, that means that's a good thing. And you know you can attach relics because they will show you at the bottom here. So that's the reason why I gave it a 1.7. And the fact that you have a relic capabilities to make your weapons stronger and increase within the game. Now the 1.8 will probably be for the fact that each weapon has a different function and they work better with certain certain relics on them. So just having the relics in the game doesn't delegate the game to actually be um, I guess independent from each other. Like each relic down here could go on any weapon, and you could choose to put it on any weapon. But the fact that once you use a relic on a weapon, the relic actually gets destroyed once you replace one relic with another relic. The relic gets destroyed. You would then have to farm it again. And that's the major drawback for the game with regards to that. That's why I only keep it at 1.7, or should I say a 1.8 now. Now the 1.9 of the game would be the fact that you could then go to your abilities here. So this would be the 1.9 of the game, because the game could have easily been use of weapons, guns, like Zombie Army, and that's it. But the fact that each character has distinct and unique powers that they could use while they're in the missions is a nice little additive to the game. And each character has different type of powers. Each powers is different. Each powers is helpful towards other members in the party, and some powers can be distributed from DLC characters to regular characters as well. So that's the 1.9 right there. Now the full two would probably be the fact that you could have there's I won't get into DLC, so I won't tap into toggle skins and stuff. So I would probably talk as I go into the game, as I play the game to give it more points just to so. Now the I would say the two would be the fact that there's a narrator to assist you in the narration part. Now the narrator can be annoying, but if you're really lost with regards to where you have to go, sometimes the character will speak to tell you where you have to go. Sometimes the narrator will speak to tell you where you have to go. And that's a nice little inclusion into the game to for you to give you direction. Sometimes it's pain in the ass because the narrator has this need to speak all the time, and that would take the game back from the from 2 to 1.9. But the fact that the narrator helps you will keep it at that 2 right there. Um, Now the 2.1 will be the fact that there's a multiplayer feature within the game. See, I already spoke on the menus and interactive menus and everything, but now there's a multiplayer feature in the game. The simple fact that the game has a multiplayer feature is the 2.1. That's it. That's all I gotta say about that. It has a multiplayer feature. It's not a single player. That means it's a 2.1. I won't get into that because I might join the mission. And there's also another feature that makes the game a 2.2. Um, if you decide to create a multiplayer and play with other people in party, you could join them in their own multiplayer, or you could decide to play independent from them and solo the game, which is the average. You play solo and do independent. But what I'm speaking of is if you do decide to if you do decide to create your own multiplayer game, you can create your own multiplayer game within Score, within Horde, within Campaign. And I like that fact that it's there. And from the 2.1 for that, I would give it a 2.2 for the simple fact that you could use that mode in any other mode. But that should be a standard. What the true 2.2 would be with regards to the adventure that you could choose. So not only can you choose multiplayer, you can select any mission within the game, any whatsoever, at those locations on your map. It doesn't mean it's the beginning of the game, the middle of the game, the end of the game. It doesn't matter. Once you unlock all these levels as you play the game from the campaign, you could then go back and play them again. So that's the 2.2 right there. Now the 2.3 would be the fact that you could then increase your difficulty and decrease your difficulty from the start of the game, or in the middle of the game, or towards the end of the game. And there's 4 modes. There's easy, middle, hard, and extreme. Now extreme is only unlocked once you beat the game on this normal mode. I'm not sure if it's unlocked on easy, but the fact that it has that in the game, that you could go from location to location once you beat the game, and the fact that you can play multiplayer and increase, this is now the 2.4 for me. 2.5 would be with regards to showing indications of where you can find certain things within each levels before you even start the levels, such as Harbor Dig Site shows the indication of relics, cats you have to collect, artifacts, and so on and so forth, and show within the map before you even start the mission. It also shows within the map if you miss something. So if you miss certain relics, you miss certain documents and certain things, it would show you once you beat the game fully that you still haven't fully completed the game, that there are certain things based on location wise that you need to collect everything. And that's a nice little inclusion into the game, and that makes the game a 4.5. That prior to you jumping into the game, you could go in there, join certain people in multiplayer, or solo the game, increase the difficulty, or decrease the difficulty, especially if you're looking for stuff. You decrease the difficulty, and then you go and find the relics. And then you could search where you need to go to pick up your last documents, relics, so on and so forth, before you actually play the level. So that's the 2.5 for me, and the 2.6. So the 2.7 would probably be with regards to, I would say, the Horde and the Score Attack. So most of everything I was talking with regards to multiplayer was all 3 of these together. But I'm not talking about multiplayer anymore. I'm talking about the leveling system. The Horde Attack mode, the simple fact that they have it in this game where you could level your weapons and so on and so forth, or just to get high scores, because I don't believe the Horde is actually for leveling up weapons, because in this game there's no leveling up of weapons. It's just doing Horde mode to get high scores. So you could basically call Horde mode the high score game, so you can get a leadership board. So that's a little drawback, but at the same time, I'll give it points for that, for simply having it in the game. So that's the 4 points. The 2.7 for me. The 2.8 would be the Score Attack, or I did say 2.7, 2.8. Okay, so 2.8 would be Score Attack, and simple fact they have that in the game is also a point. They don't need to have it. They could have just had a long campaign, but decide to have that in the game. Now I'll give the Score Attack an extra point because I played Score Attack before, which would then get the game up to a full 3 with regards to the different modes within Score Attack. Each site within Score Attack has 2 levels. Stage 1, Stage 2 for this map, Stage 1, Stage 2 for this map, Stage 1, Stage 2 for this map, Stage 1, Stage 2, so on and so forth. They're all 2 stages. And the reason for that is because I don't know the reason for that. I could have gave you more stages, but I guess the fact is it's not to drag it out the Score Attack, simply to make it something fun, something extra, and to see how fast you could kill. And at each end of each Score Attack, this is probably the most fun aspect of the game, apart from the campaign, is that at each end section there's either a boss, a huge puzzle, or incredible amount of ways to go through that will probably die from. So it's very fun factor. Score attack is a very fun factor. Who could score the highest, fastest, do the most kills, and get the most amount of rewards from doing the mission. Now, maybe, just maybe, I haven't gotten to a magnificent score to the fact that I would receive a relic reward or a specific document. I haven't got that before. What I did get was a lot of gold from score attack, and obviously it's going to be on the leadership board as well. So I appreciate the fact that they have a score attack mode in there as well, just as a little extra fun factor. So that's the 3. Now the 3.1 will be with regards to what's in, I say, our book on acquisitions, the fact of the skill points. So once you defeat certain things, whether it's score attack, whether it's the campaign, and whether it's horde mode, you actually get skill points. And what skill points does is allow you to unlock weapons or weapons in the game. Various different weapons. See, I have all these unlocked, but this one is locked. And because I have enough currency and I have enough skill point, I could buy this, and that would deduct my currency and show that I've mastered everything and collected every weapon within the game now. Now, once you go on to the skill points, which is at the lower left-hand section of the screen, under skill points, the skill points has to do with your powers, your amulet powers, and you have various different ones. So I have 5 skill points, and once you collect skill points, whether you from campaign, defeating boss, or score attack mode, you're able to unlock skills. So it's not just about using your skills in the weapons. The whole point of the skill point system is you could have bought your skills with your goal, but they put the skill points to see how much points you've accumulated by kills, or how based on the difficulty level of the game, how much skill they should reward you for the difficult level of the game. Like you might get 1 skill points if you beat a hard boss in standard mode. You might get 2 skill points if you beat a hard boss in the most difficult mode, the hard mode. Or you might get a full 5 points if you defeat a boss within extreme mode. So I like the fact that skill points isn't something that's just given to you simply because you beat the boss, that you have to beat the boss, a specific boss, on a certain level. It's not just about beating the game or beating various different bosses, but you either have to complete the full campaign, or you have to beat the boss in certain modes to unlock it. So there are different treats that the game gives you with regards to completing certain sections, or complete certain modes within the game. I like that fact that it has it there. So that's the 3.1 for me right there. So now I'm unlock this and give this character skill. And there's so many characters as well. So each character have skill points, and there are thousands of and each character has 4 skill points. Each character here have 4 skill points. This character, so on and so forth. They all have 4 skill points. Now that was 3.1. Now I'm gonna get into the fact that what makes it a 3.2. Get out of the multiplayer. 3.2 will actually be quick match. The fact that they have browsing here, and the fact that I already stated within browsing, and the fact that you could um, filter missions. So quick match and browsing. Well, actually, let me give it a 3.2 for the browsing section, and we'll get into a quick match yet. So the browsing section of the game, from the multiplayer aspect, allow you to join other people. But the filtration system, which is actually in the game, allow you to choose what mission you want to do with regards to the campaign, whether someone's playing it, whether someone's not playing it, whether you decide to host it, and you could filter through each of these to see who's online, who's playing what. So if I choose Horde and apply any to Horde, it won't show anyone playing. Now if I filter through that and show score tag and put the word any rather than specific mission location like this, any. It will also show no one's playing that. Now I can always refresh. There's also a refresh button, just in case that there's a glitch in the game or something's wrong. I could refresh at any time to see if anyone's on new. And you could choose the three modes: the campaign, the horde, and score tag. So that's the 3.2 for the game for me from browsing section. So I like the fact that that's included as well. Um, the 3.3 for me will be the quick match section, and in the quick match section you could choose once again the three modes. And the quick match is like any quick match in the game. Allow you to choose any mission, and then the game would randomly choose quick match based on your decision. I want to do campaign quick match. I want to do a horde quick match. I want to do score attack quick match. So that's the 3.3 right there for me. Um, Feeling adventurous, random, and then you could also choose random, I guess. So it will just choose any of these, I guess. So that's the 3.3 for me right there, the quick match. Now the 3.4 will be the inclusions of the extra stuff. Now I wouldn't say this is a great thing. It's an okay thing, but you get to see your actual status based on everything you've done in the game. Whether they didn't have to put that in the game, but it's in the game anyway. It's a standard for any game, to be honest with you. So the 3.3 would be my standard inclusions that they simply have it in the game, as well as the leadership board that they have in the game, which is in most games, as well as the credits that they have in the game, which is also in most games. So the 3.3 is just there as a standard anyway. The 3.4 will be regards to, and I haven't even jumped into the mission yet. I would say the 3.4 would be regards to, let me go back, see if it's there. Has to do with something in regards to the audio dialing or Brigade chatting. I don't remember what it was. Okay, so I'll skip that for right now. So what I'll do is I'll jump into the game. I'll create a match, let's say campaign. I will pick a location, Harbor Dig site, the beginning of the game. I would select multiplayer, because I'm at a 3.3 right now. I'm about to do a 3.4. And I like the fact that, did I go into inventory? Yeah, I already spoke on that. Alright, I'll continue on. Did that already. I'm not going to get into DLC characters yet. Alright, so the 3.4 would be this. The intro movie. The fact that they have an intro movie. And this intro movie feels more fleshed out than Zombie Army 4. And the characters in here for the intro movie. Not just the intro movie, but every cutscene that has these characters seem more fleshed out than anything in the Zombie Armor series. These characters seem real. They seem more independent. They seem more like a team. They seem like actually good friends, associated with each other, and that they're actually explorers, that they're actually on an adventure. It doesn't seem like they're just inclusions into the game to feel like inclusions into the game. They actually feel like they're real. So I like the fact that that's there. That's the 3.4 for me. The fact that these characters feel like they're more real than anything within any of Rebellion's games with regards to characters, that these characters actually feel like a team together. They actually feel that they're on an adventure. That they actually feel just like representatives of a dig of adventurers trying to find goal or adventure or whatever it is. So that's the 3.4 for that. Now that I'm actually officially in the game, I can start to go into the detail sections. Now I like the fact that the details of once you get into the game, the first thing you see is the character starting to speak. So the fact that character is speaking, the fact that your character can talk, it's not just your character's the words are coming out and character mouth isn't moving. The fact that they allow for your character to speak, to make it feel like the character is actually independent of your control. That your avatar actually has its own um, sense of well-being or sense of mind or existence. That's also the 3.4. Now the 3.5 would be the fact that whatever it is you have within your arsenal, or whatever you chose within your arsenal, the weapon you chose, all these things are on your character to show that whatever is on your arsenal, your character has. I have dynamite on my character, I have a side pistol, and I have the gun. So they're also present on you to indicate that you're actually in the game and you actually have these things on you. They're not invisible and they're not away somewhere. You don't have to go into a menu and then check to see if you have them on. They're present on your character, so that's the 3.5 right there. Now the 3.6, because I'm going to devil in details, has to do with the fact that you could spin the camera around and have a 360 view on everything around you, rather than static, like say Resident Evil 4, the old game. Things have vastly progressed since then. So if a game doesn't give you the option to spin around with regards to your character, that game has seriously flawed and should go back to the drawing board. So the fact that they have this in here, that's the 3.5 for me. Um, 3.6, well, maybe I already said 3.5. I'm confusing myself. The 3.5, but I'll keep it at 3.5 because maybe I'll have to deduct points anyway. So any points I forgot, I'm probably going to deduct it anyway. So even if I go over certain points, it doesn't even matter because this game is already exceeding a 5 for my point. So the 3.5 for me is that. Now the 3.6 would be the fact that you aim down sights at this speed. Every time I click on the R2 button, by the time I aim down sights, by the time I can see what I'm aiming, I click and then it shows aim down sights. It goes at an incredibly fast speed. So I click it, there's hardly any lag at all. Like it works very accurately. Now that works, as well as the movement of your character when you do it. That works as well. So that's the 3.6. The speed of your aiming. Now ricochet and everything with regards to the weapons. You could say that has to do with the aiming as well. But that doesn't. That has nothing to do with aiming. That's just the ricochet and recoil of the weapons. That's the effects of the weapons. So that would be the 3.7 for me. The fact that your character reflexes. The fact that the weapon reflexes on the hand of the character. See the body, the shoulder, and everything. The reflex of the body off the shoulder after using the weapon and everything flexes back. See? As well as if you don't hold down the direction of your R3 button when you're shooting, it just keeps going up. So keep on loading. The character's body is going backwards to show that there's actually a recoil on the body. Body's jerking. And slowly, the more you keep capping off, slowly. If you don't control your aiming, it'll just keep going up. So I like the fact that that realism is present in there. I like the fact that the body jerks back. That's the 3.7 right there. Now 3.8 will be the fact, and this is a major one that makes it a 3.8, is the fact that when you set a design for a character to aim down sights, and you go and your character's in third person, the character then zooms into third person in the far left corner, like most games. You want your character to be overlapped your monitor at the far left. You don't want to see the full body. You also always want to see at least half of the character's body, or at least a little bit more than half of the character's body present as you view them from this point. You want the character's left shoulder, left leg, and most of the character's back, when an exception towards the head, to disappear. And you want to only see the character's arm that's doing the firing and the character's head. You could go extreme and show majority of the character's back completely gone, and then put the character's head on a certain section of the character's head to the far right. You don't have to see half the character's head, but that's a little too extreme. Um, but you also do that as well. That's acceptable. For this game, the fact that they have the character at, I'll say, 25%. The halfway section of a game is the halfway section is where I'm aiming right now. And you could know the halfway section is because that little map in the center of the game is showing it right there. Or that little direct aiming point is showing it to the center right there. The little compass right in the center. And then that's the halfway section, halfway in the middle of the game. Now, the 25% will be where her elbows is. That's where the 25% is. And that should be exactly as far as your character's gun or your character's body should be shown. No more. If it exceeds that 25% marker, then that's a bad thing. This is a perfect example of good placement, and no more than that should be placed. So that's the 3.9 there for me. Now the full 4 would be the fact that besides the recoil weapon, besides the placement of the character, and besides the fact of moving around and everything, you also have something which is body movement with regards to the character. So as you're aiming down sight shooting, moving left and right shooting, your character is moving smoothly with regards to aiming down sights, with regards to placement, with regards to coming out of aiming mode, moving around. So movement in the character feels good, doesn't feel stiff, and quickly aiming and go and moving while aiming. So they're slowing down rapidly because they're aiming, but they haven't slowed down to a great amount while they're aiming and walking. So they speed up a little while they're running. That's because they're not aiming. But if you're aiming, you have to have more accuracy. If you were running and aiming, that wouldn't be good. So that's the full 4 there for me. That the character is moving fluidly while they're aiming. They're not moving incredibly fast. They're not moving incredibly slow. They're moving good. Now the 4.1 would be with regards to lighting on the characters and the use of lighting. I already said lighting with regards to the environment of the game, which is the 3D mapping as well as the modeling of lighting in the game. But I'm talking about lighting on character or lighting on the floors. The fact of lighting on everything to show shadow effects, which highlights the characters. As you're moving around, you see the sun on the character's back. The realism of the shadows on the back and the sun in the front. So realism with regards to placement of the sun or design of a sun, make it look like a sun, and then everything else around that, the light on the map painting, the light on the 3D modeling are all accurate and represents the actually existence of the sun relations towards everything in reality, as well as on the ground. You see the lighting of the sun on the ground. The shadows go in the directions based on where the actually sun is placed. Same as with the characters. So that's the 4.1 there for me. Now the 4.2 would be with regards to interaction on anything. If I was to run into this wall, I will automatically stop because I'm not running at full speed. And that would be the same for any human being. If a human being was to run into a wall, he would clap, he would have some type of effect of running into a wall if they're running at a certain speed. But if a person just runs and jogs into a wall, they would hit their leg or hit their arm and stuff, they will make a certain sound. But it won't be to an effect that will hurt them that much that they will need to say ow or anything. You won't say ow if you run into it at a certain amount of speed or a vast amount of speed. Now, with regards to this game, I believe I would deduct a point from it for not having that within the game. But deduction of points is something that comes later. So there's no actually indication of that within this game. But the 4.2, which I was going to say, was with regards to the running effects. If you double tapped on your L3, you speed up. But you don't have to do that. Sometimes you just run standardly and the character will pick up speed on their own. And the moment you decide to stop or to slow down, the character stops, and it goes back into the standard running effect. If you just keep moving forward, the character will pick up speed on their own, by their own choice. So I think that was placed in the game because they simply wanted it. So that's the 4.3 for me. And the 4.4 would be, I mean, they have running effects in the game. The simple fact that they have running effects in the game is a 4.4 for me. I mean, most games will have running anyway, but this is also not just about devils and details. This is also about the foundations of the game itself. So that's the 4.4 for me. The 4.5 will probably be with regards to how certain things interact with each other when you actually shoot them or you pick them up or so on and so forth. Do they give off a certain effects? Do they sound realistic? Do they explode realistic? Do they make the actual sound effects with regards to realism? Are they accurately done? Do they look childish or do they look simply enough to understand? So in regards to me shooting that wall, that's simply enough for someone to understand based on the indication of the red that you have to shoot the wall. So it's a nice inclusions in there. So that's the 4.5 for me. The 4.6 would be the sound effects in the game. Now this is a huge one because sound effects is what majorly makes um, uh, Strange Brigade one of the best sound effects game. Sound effects of the birds, sound effects of explosion, sound effects of music and so on and so forth, sound effects of wind. These things are actually present in the game. And you can hear them in the background. You can hear as the scorpion is crawling over. You can hear it in the background. You can hear the bird. You can hear the rushing water in the background. You can hear the wind. So the sound effects in the game is the 4.5 for me. I mean the 4.6. Now the 4.7, with regards to sound effects, the sound effects is not just about sound. But sound effects is also about acceleration of sound or deceleration of sound. How they interact with other things to make it more dynamic. Because just to have it in the game is one thing, but how to make them more dynamic to give them a more fluid feel and realism. The 4.7 would be based on interacting with certain things, like the sound of the money. Okay, so if I was to say I pick up money in a different game, it would go cha-ching or something like that, or it would go cling or cling. Or if I was to shoot this, it could have made a totally different sound, or it could have made the same sound as when I shot the bricks on this gate. Could have made the same sound, but it made the sound exactly for how the lantern was. Or the money or the cha-ching could have made a totally different interactive sound when I interact with them. So interaction with regards to sound and their environment is something as well to consider, not just having the sound in the game. So that's the 4.7. Now the 4.8 would be, so even if I shoot this, you'll see, hear the sound, they all sound differently. And not just the sound, but the variation of the sound regards to the world itself. How sound travels. So that's also a factor of sound, not just having sound, but having the realism of sound with regards to the world itself. So the 4.8 for me would then be, well, I have to get to the 4.8 first. Oh, no. Let me, okay, let me skip that. I'll do a 4.8 right now, here and now. I'm still here at the 4.8, so here this is 4.8. 4.8 will be the realism of design of the structure of the world. Not just inclusion of the realism based on 3D model and map painting, but the realism of the design of the world. So you could create a world with a 3D map world, you could render it properly, you could make it look realism, you could add color to it, so on and so forth. But it has to have a certain type of organic feel to it. I already stated that before when I'm talking about realism of the world with regards to how they're built in structure wise. And maybe I did speak on that. No. Yeah, I did speak on that. Yeah, I have to backtrack myself. Yeah, I did speak on that. So I already spoke on the structure of the world and everything. I already spoke of the animation of the actually decided to include into the story, the movies as well, or the spoken narration as well. I thought I didn't speak on the actually design of realism of things, but I think I know what it is. The 4.9 now will be the actually placement of the realism of the ground, realism of the huts, the realism of rocks and stuff. So just having something in the world, 3D modeling it to make it and giving us special effects and of the world movement and everything and the background map painting and so on and so forth, and having a waterfall, that's one thing. But making it natural and realistic is another thing. Make them fully and they're formed differently and at certain angles to make them flow as realistic as how ground and flow and trees and so on and so forth are placed based on the growth, based on how things fold within the form of nature, within the form of rocks, the mantle underneath and the crust on top and then everything is on top that comes in various different color based on the heat from the nature and the air and actually compound that rocks are made of. All these are factored in with regards to the makeup of a world. So that's the that would be the 4.9 right there. Added towards I already said with regards to the effects of the world and design and everything. So the 5, we're going to get to the 5. Why this game will be a 5 now. Already stated the inclusions of things in the game, and the 5 would be the fact that the game would give you indications of how to find certain things. And that 5 would be with regards to collecting items as well as solving puzzles. That's the full 5 right there. Collecting items and solving puzzles. So there are indications, not the sound effects, not the design of cast, not anything, but the fact that the game gives you slight indications of how to find certain things if you're looking around. So nice little placements in there with regards to the game for searching and discovering things. It's not incredibly difficult, but it's not incredibly easy as well. You have to actually look for certain things. And with regards to puzzles, you have to actually solve puzzles on your own. I'll get to that later. So that's the 5 for me. The ability to actually have collectibles in the game that gives a certain amount of indications where you can find them, rather than just, oh, you gotta find collectibles in the game and the game has it. But there's no way to indicate that you're near it or you're around it or anything. So having it in the game is one thing, but giving certain hints is another thing. So I give it a 5 for that. Now the 5.1 would be with regards to the puzzles themselves. Are they incredibly difficult? Are they incredibly easy? Um, Having the hints is one thing, but being able to solve the puzzles is another. And are the puzzles elaborate? So that would be the 5.1 right there. If the puzzles are too easy, it won't get that 5.1. If the puzzles are average, they'll get that 5.1. And I'll give the game already right now 5.1 for having puzzles that are medium to difficult. Because most of the puzzles in this game, I would say, are medium, or goes from easy to medium, majority of them. But then there are 2 or 3 that are, I would say, are difficult. So as a well-balanced game in regards to puzzles, I'll say the game is about even. So it gets that 5.1 for me for having puzzles that are even. The most difficult thing in the game is finding all the goodies, finding all the collectibles. And that's the reason why it would be that 5. But the 5.1 will go towards the puzzle sections themselves. To have puzzles in the game. That's just to have it and then to have them be either easy, medium, and difficult. So having them and having easy, medium, and difficult to wrap up the scale and difficulty of a puzzle, not to make them all too easy or too hard, but to have them even so that anyone can play them. So that's the 5.1 right there. I'm gonna see if I could get to a puzzle. But before that, since I already gave it a point for puzzle, I'm now gonna get into enemies. Enemy animation. I spoke with regards to character animation, and you could say it could function the same as the enemies. You could say the characters, the enemy animation functions the same as the characters, but not so much. The enemy is supposed to move a certain way. They're undead creatures. Their behavior is supposed to behave a certain way. They're supposed to interact a certain way when they die. So this will be the 5.2 right here. Do they have a significant advantage over you? Yes. They move slow, but when you close in, they move fast. Because they're hungry for your brains or whatever. That's the only advantage of the enemy on the game. Otherwise, the game would be too easy. And they would die too quickly. So one bullet doesn't kill them. Two bullets doesn't kill them. 1, 2, 3 bullets kills them. So even at the beginning, it takes more than one bullet. And the fact that they're not so easy that they're just walking zombies. No, they're not so easy that they're walking zombies. They have that reach when you close in. And if you're not careful, you'll die. So that's the 5.2 right there for me. The fact that the enemies aren't that dumb. I mean, they're dumb zombies. But they were designed a way to give them a significant advantage over you if you don't pay attention to the mechanics of the game. The actually animation of the monsters is a different thing than how they interact with you with regards to fighting. Do they look like good zombies? Do they look like good designs? I guess you could say that's the same for character design, so maybe I shouldn't give it a point for that. Because if you already state character design for characters, then that falls into kind of the same category. And how the zombies die and everything, that's the 5.2. How they move with regards to your actions is in 5.2. What quirks and what perks they have with regards to their animation set is a 5.2. So each monster in the game is a little different from the other. They all function a little differently. So just having them all behave the same would be boring. But they all are different in their own way. And they all behave differently in their own way. And they all move in a different way. These ones just lobby along. See, when I shoot their bodies reflect backwards. That's more realistic in that way. You know what? Let me go get out of multiplayer. Because the whole point of multiplayer is that they'll eventually join you and start doing certain things. And it'll be an annoyance. So I gotta leave this. I gotta put it on solo, not multiplayer. So I'm already at a 5.2. 5.3 would be besides the enemy. I would say 5.3 would be the actually design of besides the movement and design of the enemies. 5.3 would be the actually locations where you fight. Or not really the locations where you fight. That's a standard in any game. Not that great. I would say it would probably be not the locations where you fight, but how you're fighting the enemies. The fun factor with regards to fighting enemies.
Magical muggies! What tantalizing treasures are they hiding? Would the ancient nemesis of all adventurers. How will our heroes ever hope to bypass such a thing? Huzzah! Onwards, strange brigade. Oh my!
Ugh, dead things that yet walk.
Alright, so the 5.3 would be with regards to how you interact with certain enemies and their levels, the fun factor. But before I get into that 5.3, I guess I could give the 5.3 for for this. When you scale anything, you climb anything in the game, or it's part of the running animation. The same way you pick up speed running by either double tapping the L3 or just holding down your L3 while moving forward and then run. The same goes for the climbing animation. And I guess you could put that into the same category as running, the climbing animation. You don't have to hold down the climbing button, but that's completely different. Like, it's set there that automatically does it on its own. Certain games you have to press on the wall before climbing a wall, press on a ladder before climbing a ladder. This game made it more simplified, so I like the fact that that's there. I like the fact that you don't have to think about it, that they just do it, and it's just present there completely. So that's the 5.3 right there. The 5.4 will be to interact the fun factor of fighting the bosses and everything, or the hordes of enemies. But before I get there, I'll probably do something, give it another point for something else. So 5.4. So I'm at a 5.4 now, and I guess I could do the 5.5. That's the 5.5. Is it good? Not really. Is it critical when you need it? Yes. If you're capping off rounds like this and then you reload and the enemy jumps at you right before you fully reload, this does it. And once you do it, once you do a kick, whenever reload animation you were in, let's say you were halfway into your reload animation and you weren't finished reloading and you did a kick, the game automatically completes the reload. So you don't have to do the reload again. See, look, I'll go. See, the reload wasn't finished. I'll pick a different weapon. See? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Shoot again. 1, 2, 3. Shoot again. 1, 2, 3. Shoot again. Now I'm going to do. Wait. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. See? Before I even do it, or this. You can basically say your R1 button, which is your kick attack, keeps enemy away right when you're doing your reload in that critical moment. So that's very helpful. It's stiff, it's janky, and I will take a points off for it. But I'm gonna deduct points towards the end of the game with regards to that. But the fact that it has that perk, it has that little extra additive, that it actually follows through on the reload is incredibly helpful. Now, another thing that's good about doing this attack is that you also, once you kick an enemy hard enough, the enemy falls down, you can stomp on your enemies towards the ground.
and that will give you those little things that you suck into your body, and to give yourself your powers so you can execute your powers. So it's not just about keeping enemies away. It's a good way to stagger an enemy and then to acquire their power without using ammo. So if you knock an enemy down, or just stagger an enemy, if your enemy is a boss and you stagger an enemy with a heavy attack, your other characters, your other people in your multiplayer can shoot at the enemies while you're staggering. Now it doesn't work all the time, especially on bosses or on heavies. Like if you hit them once, stagger them once, but it might not happen again because they're boss level. You might end up dying. But if you stagger like sub bosses, or you stagger like majority of enemies, you give them a knock animation or a stagger animation. That way you can complete your reload and then keep shooting again. So I like the fact that that's there. So that's the 5.5 for me, or the 5.6 for me. Oh, wait a minute. What? No, 5.7, yeah. So that's the 5.7 for me as a total.
Fantastical firepower at your fingertips.
Now the 5.6 is when I would say it was the boss I would get in contact with too, with regards to fun factor. 5.7 was the knockdown effect. 5.6 was the interaction with fighting bosses.
Interesting. Locked gate, an abandoned camp. The plot thickens.
So you know what? I know what. I'll give the whole knockdown effect the 5.6, and then when I get to the boss or the bosses, I'll give it the 5.7.
Let's check on our tools.
I'm trying to do this as fast as possible.
Oh, what's this then?
I see I already spoke on the puzzles. I already get points for the puzzles, so I don't have to worry about that. Not gonna worry about the puzzles. Just want to get to where I need to get to. They start from the easiest and the most obvious, being right in front of you, and then they start to get complex as you go later on in the game.
Perhaps those symbols over the door and those shimmering switches.
Now I'm not gonna give it points for actually the grenades. Not gonna give it points for the grenades and everything, or the TNT, the dynamite, because I'm just gonna add that as part of the whole weapon stuff. What I am gonna give it a point for with regards to um, grenades, and I really wanted to wait till I get to the boss fight to give it that 5.7. I'll give it a point for the grenades. Should be the 5.7 right now, not the guns and uses of the guns, but the grenades. Um, the 5.7 with regards to the boss will have to wait. The 5.7 regards would be the actual usage of grenades. Um, Main thing, left, right. If you keep holding down your L1 button, if you're using a PlayStation controller, keep pressing X, which is the dodge ability. which I didn't highlight on the dodge ability.
They don't know where you went there.
You cancel out your throw ability, but you could keep holding down on your L1 and keep rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling while you're holding down on the L1, and the character will still. And the moment you stop rolling, it's still while you're still holding down on your L1, will hold on to the grenade. I mean, or the dynamite, or the explosives that you have in your hands, or whatever ones grenade types that you decide to use, or explosives types that you decide to use. And as long as you roll, you always cancel it out. And that way you could go into your weapons. So, about to throw, cancel out, go into weapons. About to throw. Then you decide you want to continue to throw, or you need to walk out the way from getting a critical hit from an enemy, dodge backward, forwards, go into your weapons, or roll forward, roll backwards while you're holding down the L1, and then decide to throw. And then you could choose to shoot the grenade or the dynamite, or you could wait for the timer. So that's the 5.7. It's not just the dynamite effect, use of the dynamite or the grenade. It's the use of your rolling abilities with regards to shooting and with regards to throwing your dynamite. But dodging is important, and walking fast sideways, walking around enemies is good and everything. But sometimes when you're in shooting mode or in throwing mode, you're moving very slowly, and you would need to be able to move fast. That walking ability when you're not shooting does not give you when you're in this mode, and that's where the whole dodging ability comes in handy. Now each grenade type has a certain amount of range, so you got to remember to stay out of the range of the grenade type. If it has a larger range, you might want to stay back.
By Jove, they've a full amulet. Yes, looks like you're on the right track here, Brigade. Huzzah! Success. Good show. An obscure find, to be sure, but well worth the effort. An ancient antiquity. A new addition for the Brigade private collection, methinks.
So I already give it a 5.7. I'm going to get into a 5.8 soon.
Deeds of glory, I can think of a few good uses for these razor-sharp rotaries.
I didn't speak on the traps within the game. I'm going to speak on that later. Different type of traps to make the game interesting. Now, as you can see, based on what I spoke on regards to gems on weapons, if you put certain gems to increase accuracy or to give freezing attack or to give more damage, they have perks. And it's very effective based on horde mode or tons of enemies coming at you all at once. Very helpful. Some have heat mode, some have armor piercing, some have freeze, some have more accuracy when shooting, some have giving you health back. That's one power that she has. Alright. Alright, so I'm about to get into the 5.8.
It belongs in a museum or in our bank accounts.
Now, after I get to this 5.8, so this game, like I said, is a 5.8, 4.9, 6. But I give it a 5.8 because I'll have to deduct certain points once I start to get to a 6, 6.1, 6.2. It comes roughly around to a 5.8 all around the game for me. It'll exceed 5.8 if I just give it points, but if I start looking at things and deducting them, it goes back to a 5.8. So I'm about to get to a 5.8 right now in regards to the boss. Our boss is interesting, or at least horde enemies interesting. Are they more fun? Are they like, see, I like the animation set and description of the game and the type of enemies and the intro movie for them and different variation of boss and animation of when you kill certain enemies, how they look. I like that. But I spoke on that already, so that's not something that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fun factor, the 5.8. The fun factor of the game in regards to the enemies, in regards to bosses. Is it interesting? Is it too simple? Well, fun factor is basically the overall of everything I just stated. How they all interact with each other. When I get to bosses, like really big bosses, then you'll see what I mean.
That log looks jolly useful.
Now, I didn't speak on the effects of how to use powers, or how to do the whole sucking in thing with the R2 button, and then collecting orbs. I like that. And since it'll probably be a while for me to actually get to the boss, and I guess I could speak on that right now. So, the ability to use your powers, the ability to use the absorbability to collect things, to move while you're collecting things. You don't simply have to run over them to collect them. You could be at an incredibly far distance, like say all the way over here. And if you use your abilities, you could suck up those orbs from all the way over here to where you are all the way over there. It has a certain range deficiency. As the further you go out of range, the harder it is for it to get towards your area. And if you go too far, you can't take it at all. But this, at this range, it could grab those orbs from right here. Or right here. Like say if I'm standing right here, where these spikes came out of the ground. Right here. Where the orbs fell right there by the door. If I use this ability, I could grab them from all the way over here and all the way over here. If I go too far, that might be a totally different story. So that's the 5.8 right there. Now, since I'm here and there are traps right here, I would say the 5.9 would be with regards to intricacies with regards to the traps themselves. They're all very elaborate, they're all very old school, and they're all very fun. And they work well with regards to your environment. But they're not designed to hurt you in the process. they're actually designed to help you in the process. Now, when it comes to certain ones are actually set there to not make you progress. But those are mainly for the fact of you're trying to get artifacts, or you're trying to solve puzzles to get certain relics, or you're trying to get documents. That's when traps will become a huge problem because they won't have an indicator, like a red indicator that they're there to help you, or they won't have like a glowing orb next to them to show that it's there to assist you in order to kill your enemies and so forth, like these ones. Or they won't have a flashing glowing red sign or on the wall or wood to shoot so that this could come down. Each section in the game will have 3 different types of trap sections, and that's why I say this is 5.9. This, and this. So they're either wall traps, they're pillar traps, and then there's traps that has to do with shooting piece of wood or something, and then there's the 4th one, the explosive one, shooting a barrel. So there are explosive traps types, and there are variation explosive traps types. There are variation pillar traps types. There are variation wall traps types, and there are variation wood trap types in order to make things come down or fall down or have different other traps unlocked as well at the same time. And those are the 4 helpful ones with regards to the game for assisting you. Now, there are additional other 4 trap types, and those additional 4 other trap types are maybe they're more than that. Maybe there are three more than the standard trap types here. But those other trap types aren't meant to assist you. They're actually meant to hold back. So the standard 4 trap types that you could use, and then there's the standard 4 trap types, just like these 3, like barrel, the wall, pillar, and then whatever wood's on the wall to make something comes down. That are in the game that are actually there to hinder you. So therefore to assist you, and then therefore to hinder you. It could be wrong. It could be more than that, but those are the ones that I've seen. So that's the 5.9 right there. Now the 6 would be I guess once I get to the boss, then the boss would be the 6. But I'm just saying these points as I go along, because that's the best way to state it, rather than to just state that it's present there without showing it. Now I already said this as I played the entire game, but I was playing the entire game just to see as I was playing the campaign. I was more interested in the campaign rather than to state it as I was going along. Another thing with regards to the R1 abilities, certain characters have less range when it comes to this ability. Like if you do kicks, you have more range. If you do punches, you have less range. But that's not that big a deal. It's only big a deal for one character in the game. I know I will state who that one character is towards the end. Or I could say it right now. It's that character that wears that cowboy hat. He has the least amount of range of any character. And he's a DLC character, the one that wears the cowboy hat. He does a kick, but his kick is a Shin kick. And it's the dumbest thing ever. Because it has like the shortest range, it's less than a punch. So the enemy could literally be standing right in front of you, and he could miss. So his R1 is horrible. Very horrible. Trying to get to that boss to do that 6. So far I spoke on everything with regards to the game. All I got to do now is proceed forward into that boss fight.
Way ahead open. Onwards, Brigade. There's murderous mysteries and sinister secrets to be uncovered here.
This should help.
And see, that's the great part about this game. Pick you could pick weapons at any time that you want to use. As long as you're near a crate, you could do that. So should I give the game a point for that? I think I already did. The fact that, yeah, I already stated that you can switch up between weapons while you're in the game. So now I'm going to get to a boss and then I'm going to do the 6. Okay, so this is a boss level. These are considered bosses. The temple guards are boss level.
Someone certainly doesn't want our heroes reaching that dig site.
Throwing dynamite.
Now the reason why this level of enemies seems simple. The scorpions, the zombies, and then the javelin thrower temple guards is because the difficult level of this area is on easy. If it wasn't on easy, they'll be hitting much harder, and there will be much more enemies to deal with. But I put on easy for this example because there's no point in trying to play it difficulty right now. The emphasis just to show the different type of bosses, different type of levels, and different fun factor across the game. So now you have scorpions coming at you, then you have zombies coming at you. So everything you played at the beginning of the game so far to this point are coming at you. And now you have the throwers. So the game is actually showing you as you play each boss section how to fight a boss or how to choose the specific weapon that's more preferable. So the game is helping you to understand itself. So the bosses themselves are an example of them actually helping you to understand how to play the game well. So I like that with regards to the boss. I like the fact that not all bosses are front and center. Some are at a distance. Some throw javelin. You have to see the timer for when the javelin is thrown. Then you execute your abilities. You have to move around as well. So the game is teaching you as you're playing it how to shoot, how to move your character, how to aim, how to survive. Using ranged enemies, forward enemies, understanding the mechanics of the game as you're playing, what weapons to choose at the same time. So I like the fact that the game gives you the options to understand its mechanics. And it does that for every single level of every boss fight or even enemies. It's showing you, based on the fact that you could go into your crate and choose what type of weapons you want, what's the most preferable weapons to fight a specific type of enemy before you fight the enemy. So if you know after you beat the game on easy mode, the type of enemy that you're going to encounter, what weapon is best chosen to deal with the majority of every enemy, both those on the ground and those above. So that's the 6 there that I was speaking of. The fact that the game helps you in its kind of its own tutorial way without being a tutorial to assist you to understand how the mechanics of the game works. So that's the boss. That's the fun factor there, that you get to learn things as you go and switch up your weapons in regards to the area and the fact that you get to fight the amount of enemies that you fight before all at once while fighting a new enemy. So it's not just about fighting a new boss, but fighting also hordes of enemies at the same time. And being able to understand everything you've learned so far, from as soon as you pull out your weapon, as soon as you start to run, as soon as you start to execute attacks. The game early on showed you how to play the game without giving you an overestimated tutorial by showing you on the screen. It shows you on the screen in character behaviors, your enemy behaviors, and your weapon choice, and the type of levels you are. It's not stating it physically in word format. And that's the 6. Now I'm going to get to the 6.1, which will probably be the puzzles, the more complicated puzzle locations, not just, well, I already gave it points for puzzles and solving puzzles. But I guess I could go into the section of the details and geometry of puzzles. Should I give it a point for that? If I already give it a point, maybe not. But I believe it's best to flesh it out rather than just to give a hollow example of the puzzles. Now you notice I stated everything with regards to this game. I stated everything with regards to the game. I've got it up to a 6. I haven't actually dove into score attack and horde mode yet. But I already stated that horde mode and score attack has stages, or score attack has stages, stage 1, stage 2, and then you get the fights. So I already stated that, but I haven't stated based on the fun factor of actually being present, how things are set up in the game. I'm just stating that it's fun based on you're running and gunning and seeing who has the highest points and everything, but I didn't state it based on how things are set up. Maybe I shouldn't, maybe I don't have to. If it's present there, it's already done. But I'll do just one try of that. So I'm already at 6 point, full 6. So I'm already at a full 6. So now I'm going to get into a 6.1 territory. Okay, so after I kill these enemies, I'll get deeper into the puzzles. It's not just about figuring out puzzles, or about whether a puzzle is complex or easy. It's about how puzzles are designed in the game. Not just about the difficulty, simply about how they're set up in the game. Because collectibles is all about finding stuff and finding where they're placed. It's not so easy. You have to actually look for collectibles. But puzzles is a different story. Yes, you have to look for things with regards to puzzles as well as collectibles. But it's more about using your brains, not to actually look for things, but figuring out on your own how it works, how the puzzles works. So it's not about just the puzzles themselves and the difficulty of the puzzles. It's understanding how the mechanics of the puzzles works.
destroyed. All thanks to the splendid efforts of the Strange Brigade. Incoming enemies and a trap-laden archer.
Ammunition. How useful.
Our heroes arrive at the dig site, but yet there's still no sign of their quarry.
You've reached the camp? Excellent. We need to know if Harvin's found and opened that tomb.
I have a bad feeling about this. Something feels very wrong here.
There's the lock, but how to get the key? Best get looking, Brigade. clearly doesn't want our heroes getting inside this tomb. Fancy footwork on display there. Yes, the old strange smackdown shuffle. Good work.
I will keep these for now. Reloading here.
Yes, huzzah! Well spotted.
Oh yeah, there's one thing I like to mention with regards to this game. There's no fall damage. Should that deserve a point? Well, when you're in a critical state, and your health is depleting,
Key to success.
you're trying to escape an enemy that's charging at you,
Yes, rich
especially the
rewards for a
heavies,
job well done.
and they throw something at you that can one-shot you. You jump off a
Yes, we
ledge
certainly have paranormal
to a
police
ground
here.
like very far below. They won't do the same. They might actually go around, or sometimes they will, but they'll help you to get out of it. So that's the 6.1 there. I totally forgot about there's no fall damage in this game, which is a huge bonus in my opinion. Um, should it be a takeaway? Probably. But is it a benefit towards your survival? Yes. So I'm not going to deduct points yet. So this is 6.1. I'm going to start deducting points towards the end. Just need to, I guess, go in here, see if I missed anything. I guess I could solve this puzzle, but I don't really need to. I already have the item.
Oh, Lady Webster won't be happy to hear this.
For this puzzle, I need to proceed forward, so I have to do this one. Not so much this one.
A puzzle. How will our heroes solve such a thing?
You call that a riddle?
Yes, rich rewards for a job well done.
Ammunition.
So this puzzle, I have to solve forward in order to proceed in the game. As I said, it goes from easy to difficult, so this is still on the easy mode, quite obvious. Um, I believe I collected the reward in here. That's why it's all fully green.
Queen of the damned. Are our heroes too late?
I I think I'm gonna give the game a point. I mean I didn't forget it, but it was part of the whole appeal of the game. They put shock animations in there just to give you that little slight jump scare, a little slight enjoyment, and they put text in there to show the enemy types as well as the the encounters, whether it's a spook or whether it's something that's a boss fight or a group of enemies. So that's not actually part of the cutscene, which I already gave a point for, but it's more like part of the whole enjoyment factor of the game, exploration factor of the game. They didn't have to put that in there. They could have just put the narrating in there and not have the narrator at all speak, and only show the animation when it comes to cutscenes. But to add those little additives into the game to give it more appeal towards the fun factor of the game. And I appreciate that they add that into the game when they didn't have to. So that's the 6.2. We'll get to 6.3. So maybe this will be a more appealing boss fight, with regards to either teaching you how to stuff or to discovering things.
Oh my! Looks like the local wildlife found Harbin long before the Brigade. How gruesome! By the Lord Harry, this can't be good. Oh heavens! What long-forgotten evil have our heroes stumbled upon here? Will they even find out? Or will this terrifying tomb's residents prove to be too much for the Strange Brigade?
See, I like that. They did the whole thing. It's very interesting. And obviously the enemies, the bosses, they become significantly harder. Enemies become significantly harder as you play the game. They go from regular enemies to charger enemies to bombers, so on and so forth. But seeing the fact that this is on easy mode, I'm not stressing it too much. See, this is a cutscene. This is a cutscene. Those inclusions to the side weren't like actual cutscenes, they were like extras. So 6.2, 6.3. That's how I feel towards uh, campaign things. From everything from, if you're looking at the entire game as an entirety, and then you look at the campaign, it's at a 6.2, 6.3. Now, if you go back to I say the regular mode. I mean, not regular mode. You go back to main menu. You then after exploring, I say, well, let's see. After selecting, like, if you've played each of these modes, I already give points for these. I already give points for score attack and spoke on different stages. But if you go deeper into these modes, these various different modes that the game has, like Horde, and then you actually test it out, you actually see how it plays out based on the enemies. Or if you go into score attack and you actually test out how score attack works, and see how the levels are different in comparison to Horde. They're very different. Horde is more open. The areas are more open, more spread out. In a different area you could traverse. It's basically a campaign, but certain areas are locked off. And then as you proceed further into the game to see how high a score you can get, you dive deeper into the different areas of the map. Whereas score attack has you limited to a certain area and have you only proceeding to two certain areas of that one stage. But it's more like how much points you could get before that stage is completely over. So I like the fact that each of these different type of modes are very different from each other. That's campaign is different from score attack. Horde is different from scored attack. And they're all different. They all share the same thing, which is they all have the same area map, but they're all chopped into different sections and have different methods of how you can execute them differently. So when they create these different modes, they were considering the fact of how to chop them into sections so they all play and feel like different games, yet they're all still part of the same game. Yet have them still feel like they're part of the same game. So from there, since it's already gave pretty much everything, I spoke on the game, I spoke about quick matches, I spoke on browsing to do random and multiplayer, so on and so forth. So from there, and I also spoke on extras. So from there, then you go back and subtract things from the game. And after you play the overall game, let's say you play the overall campaign, and you play each of these overall sections, unlock each sections, and everything I stated from this point on, from movement, from bosses, from puzzles, from the worlds, the environment, the features, the actual artwork, so on and so forth, till you get to the end of the final level, which is the afterlife. Thereafter, you could decide, well, as a total game overall, is the overall game, horde, score attack, and everything fun by yourself as well as in a group of people? And that's where we'll get a 6.4 to a 6.5 for me. I would say the most this game would get is a 6.4. And then after you give it a 6.4, after evaluating everything with regards to all modes, 6.4, you then dive into the DLC section stuff, which I didn't even spoke of, which consists of the same thing the regular game consists of. The only difference is with regards to the DLC, you have extra levels, 3 extra levels, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 extra characters. And each of these characters have different powers, different weapons, and different grenades you can use. And those grenades are either freeze, electricity, and fire. And it's based on the enemy types that you're going to fight within the levels of Strange Brigade, because Strange Brigade have certain enemies that are more susceptible towards fire, ice, and lightning, or in this case, mostly in Strange Brigade, you use your grenade for everything. But if you want a specific effect, a specific enjoyment of the game, you now have the ability to choose between ice, electricity, and fire. And that's a nice little additive towards the game. So with regards to DLC, with regards to the DLC maps, with regards to the 3 maps, I believe the first and the second map are probably the best, and the last map feels like a standard everyday map throughout the game. Whereas the DLC, the Sunken Pirate, these two felt the same, and this felt like something that was part of the regular game. I like the fact that you get to fight Sateki again towards the last section of the DLC. And I like the fact that they included pirate ships and an island this time. So with regards to the DLC, I would give it a point for adding DLC map as well as adding characters. So it's not like they did something dramatically different. They just add more of what they've always done. So I'm just going to give them a point for adding more from what they've always done. What I am going to give them an extra point with regards to DLC is adding the effects of certain type of um, weapons, effects of certain type of grenades that you could use with regards to enemies. That wasn't part of the game before. You just had the TNT standard bomb, and then you had your chemical bomb. Now you have elemental type bombs, fire, ice, and lightning. And these are all effective based on to make your game more fun, or enemies are more susceptible towards these attacks, especially in the group settings. Um, as a whole, I believe it's mostly was set there for fun factor. So the DLC only gets like 2 points for me, in regards to not just the maps are more interesting and the environment looks more realistic, but it's pretty much the same thing in regards to the same Strange Brigade, but it's a little bit more fleshed out. And I give it a point for adding a DLC to the game when they didn't have to, but they just decided to, as well as fleshing it out just a little bit more to give it more fun with regards to characters, with regards to powers, and with regards to usage of the grenades. I'm not going to give them points for each of these sections. I'm just because they're basically the same thing from the standard game. It's just that they made those things in the standard game more fleshed out in the DLC. So this game is, as a total, if you were to include everything from a positive aspect, it's a 6.5 game as a whole. So if I was to pick Sunken Island, Dead Island, then I was to pick a character. Let's say I pick most people like this character, and they like DLC character. They like this character. Most people like this character. There's two female characters, and they like um yeah Shimizu. They like Shimizu. They like Khan, and they like Caldwell. They don't really like uh Gohan or Bash Gohan. They don't like Bay, and they don't. I think DLC Winston Bay and Patrick Cohen and maybe Achiro. I would say maybe Achiro are the worst of the DLC characters. But from what I see, based on other people's playstyle, they like Khan the best. They like Caldwell second, and Hachiro they like as the third. And then Winston Bay would come in as a second to last, and then Patrick Cohen comes in at last. And this is mostly surrounding the fact that his R1 ability is the worst in the game, even though he has some good special powers. But his R1 ability is atrocious. He just has the best skin design in the game. That's about the greatest part about this character. He has the best skin design, the cowboy hat, the whole cowboy stuff going on. And I guess you could consider her to be the best if you like that, but I like the whole cowboy thing more than anything, and then you put her in as the second. But the fact is, they decided to invest in the DLC towards skins, towards characters, new characters, and new weapons and elements towards weapons. I consider that to be a good part of the game. So that's pretty much everything I have to say with Strange Brigade with regard to the positive aspects. So the negative, I'm going to do the DLC, and I'm going to
Angelic Khan on the hunt for familial vengeance in this life or the next.
and I'm going to put it on, just play it on standard. And then I'm going to speak on the actual negatives of the game. In fact, I'll speak on the negatives of the game right now. Negatives of the game. It feels very janky. So that's a -1 when it comes to not only doing the R1 attack, but when it comes to, um, yeah, I think that's about it when it comes to doing the R1 attack. Does that decide to have a 1 for it? Um, when it feels stiff, yes, because that's a negative of the game. It doesn't actually make it good. So from a 6.5 to going down now.
Bad news, Brigade. Our specialists have detected unusual energies.
A quick pause to the proceedings.
So from a 6.5 going down right now, I would say 6.5 going downwards. It would be this attack. It feels very janky. I know it zooms in to do the attack, but once you do the attack, it doesn't matter what direction you do the attack in. It falls in that direction, which is good. But the fact that it feels very stiff, and the fact that it takes you out of line of sight. Let's see if an enemy is to your left or to your right. The moment you do this attack, it zooms in, and then enemies to left and right could attack you. So if they just did it and then without zooming in, still be able to see your surroundings. If you were able to do it and it doesn't lock you into the screen and do it while you're moving, and you are still able to move rather than boom, you do the attack and then you're not able to move anymore. You do the execution. They should have at least did it as a combination rather than a one-shot attack. And then you could go to your guns or you could dodge or so on and so forth. But it goes to this one-shot attack, and then that's it. There's no uh, martial arts part of the game. Like these people obviously know some type of fighting capabilities. It's not just weapons handling. They know some type of fighting abilities. But they all seem to do just one R attack. There's no combination of martial arts movements in the game whatsoever. You just know how. I mean, the boxers, fighters, martial artists. I don't know what their fighting skill is because the game doesn't give them a fighting skill. So that's the one I'll take off from regards to this. That's why it goes back down to a 6.4. It goes back down to a 6.3 and continues down to a 6.3 from a 6.4 with regards to the fact that let me see. Okay, with regards to the acquisitions, I already spoke positive about the acquisitions, but the fact that you can't read the text with regards to the acquisitions, you can't see the text. You can't see what it's saying with regards to the lore of the world. Because the lore is of artifacts, it doesn't say, and you will really have to look really close into the screen to read the text. There's no cleaning up of the text. There's no zooming in of the text. You can't zoom in and zoom out. There's no like button to press to show you in text format so you could read it crystal clear to see what it's about. And there's no interactive understanding towards the text. It's not just fleshed out. It's not just there. It's just not. There's no creativity towards that. So that's the 6.4, and then the 6.5 will fall into the category of when it comes to playing the game. I mean, this game has a photo mode, and I didn't even speak on the photo mode, and that will take the photo mode up to a 6.5. I should have spoke on that, but I didn't speak on it. I guess I could give. I'll do that last 6.5. Actually, you know what? Let me give it the photo mode. It's fair due. The fact that it has a photo mode, the fact that you can remove character from photo mode, the fact that you could hide certain things in photo mode, the fact that you could turn off the fact that it has filters for photo mode, lens and overlays for photo mode. It's good. So that's a 6.5. So now it's back up to 6.5. And now I'm going to take it right back down to 6.4. because I completely forgot about the photo mode. The photo mode is good. The photo mode has filters, lens, so on and so forth, and it all works out the way you want it to. I didn't believe this game was going to have a photo mode. I couldn't believe the game had a photo mode, but it does have a photo mode. So now I'm back up to 6.5. But now we'll take it right back that's down to 6.4 because now I'm into the negative section of the game, the negatives of the game. And the other 6.4 with regards to, because the folder just brought that back up, I just realized that was there. Now I'm going to take it back down to 6.4. Dialogue. At the beginning of the game, you start to get irritated with what the narrator is saying. The narrator does not shut up. He always talks, even sometimes when you're in combat. And so I like the fact that this inclusion of dialogue is there to cut off the narrator's voice as a whole. But here's the thing, that if they're going to have a narrator in the game to narrate certain things in the game, it should not be at every single section of the game. It should only be when it's necessary. And after a while, it becomes an annoyance. And the only time you want to increase and decrease dialogue is with regards to the muttering and chatting, with regards to your character members, such as your brigade members. And if you're going to remove the narrator's words in the game, you have to remove it totally, as well as those from the cutscene and well as those in game. They didn't do that. So that's the 6.4 right there. They didn't do that with regards to in-game removing narrator's voice as well as cutscenes of the actual game itself. They just increased the decreased dialogue and increased dialogue overall towards everything, both cutscenes and intro movies, and as well as in the game as a total, rather than separate them in individual. And yes, you increase the brigade's chatter back and forth while you're playing in game, which is good. But the fact that the narrator doesn't shut up and becomes kind of a nuisance sometimes at the beginning of the game, even when you're in fights, or even when you solve something or found a puzzle, it becomes a slight annoyance. So that's the 6.4. So now I'll take it back down to 6.3. I would say one of the drawbacks with regards to this game is the fact that where was it? Where was it? Is it part of the menus? I don't remember what it was. Well, it's not really part of the menus. Forget it. Alright, so I'll just continue on forward. I'll speak on the continuing of while I'm playing the game. Okay, so what's the 6.3 of the game is that bosses sometimes are so predictable you can actually exploit it. Now I'm talking about boss battles. I'm not talking about these regular minions here, like these regular characters or regular enemies. I'm talking about bosses. Now, when you fight certain bosses, I believe the intentions of the game was to have hordes of enemies surrounding you, and then have the boss enemies. And because they had hordes of enemies surrounding you, as well as fighting the boss, they dumbed down the boss's strength. And I believe the same applies to most of the bosses. That it's more about aiming towards the exact sweet spot, um, you know, the exact direct indication where you're supposed to aim at to take them down. And they made it difficult in a way so it's not so easy in order to hit that center by throwing in the hordes of enemy to distract you, by making the boss do any boss do a special move also to distract you. But once you understand the mechanics of the boss, it's something that becomes quite simple to understand. So that's the 6.3 for me when it comes to boss battles. It becomes sort of kind of predictable and obvious when it comes to the game. 6.2, I'll try to get this done as fast as possible because I'm losing internet connection here. Is the 6.2 is the fact that some puzzles might be too easy. And yes, I like the puzzles, and yes, I like escalation of difficulty of puzzles, but um, my whole idea is to make sure to give a thorough evaluation of the game, and the puzzles never go to a complexity that's beyond easy to standard difficulty. It never becomes so difficult that um, you really need to put on your thinking cap to an extreme. Yes, there might be one puzzle in particular that has this, but that's just one, or maybe even two, and then it never goes past that. Now, I've never played the game on extreme, so maybe that's not the case, but I would say, in my opinion, that for even for the hard mode, the puzzles doesn't go beyond a complicated level. So that's my 6.3 right there. Puzzles don't go beyond a complicated level. Now my 6.2 would be, well, okay, yeah, area of effect not that great. All right, so my 6.2 would be, let me get rid of these guys. My 6.2 would be the fact that as you're exploring into the game, or doing something things with regards to the game as multiplayer with your friends, there's not really a lot of people that plays this game in multiplayer mode. It's not well known. It's not that much. Um, there's not that much of marketing for the game, even though it originally came out in 2018. And even when it came out in 2018, they didn't invest that much into it becoming a popular multiplayer aspect game. That's because they didn't flesh out the actually inclusions of item customization, skins, so on and so forth, with regards to weapons and characters. So that's the one I will take away from the multiplayer aspect. You don't have item skins that you could, uh, I mean, not item skins from the multiplayer aspect. You don't have the capabilities as playing with other people in the multiplayer that there's a lot of traffic going on. And that traffic doesn't happen due to the fact of another inclusions, which is will be my 6.2. Was that? Yeah, 6.2, which is the fact that customization is bad in this game. There is no customization. You just get different character with different skins and different weapons. And so, with regards to the multiplayer being, there's not much traffic and not much people playing the game because product marketing and other aspects. That also coincides with the fact that there's not that much customization of skins, or no customization with regards to skins and outfits and facial structures and um, independent creation of facial characters and movement of and advanced weapons and taking apart, putting apart your weapons or putting on different outfits and so on and so forth. So that's my 6.2, the customization. And coincided with the fact that there wasn't that much marketing done for this game, and even if there were, it wasn't done to the degree which it should have done as a multiplayer game. Um, it should have had more traffic with regards to it, but it didn't have more traffic because it's either a multiplayer issue or they didn't include certain aspects of the game to a level that was considered well worthwhile. So they didn't do that. So that's the 6.2. Now 6.1 would be I'm taking it down to 6.1 now. Would be the fact that if you consider the fact of multiplayer, if you consider the fact of not including skins, if you consider the fact that of weapons and weapon customization, if you already consider these factors as the drawbacks from the game, there's also the fact that the game in and of itself felt like a foundation game, and that it in itself was not fleshed out as much as you would want to. Not just the fact that the game itself, when it comes to skins, weapons, and other additives or grenades and so forth, but the game in and of itself felt like it wasn't fleshed out. It felt like a complete game, as you will make a complete cake with a complete frostings and every other additive into the game. But beyond that, there wasn't any fleshing out of the official game itself. It didn't feel like the world were completely fleshed out. It felt like You were going on an adventure, doing an adventure with your friends or by yourself. And then at the end of the game, it felt like it was over, which is the same for every game. Um, but it didn't feel like it was fleshed out. It felt very hollow. Even as an exploration game, and even though were discovering things, and even though you're using puzzles to discover certain things, you felt like certain aspects of the game that had potential didn't have potential. Like even though the game went from beginning and then ended, it didn't feel like it had potential um, beyond its foundations. Um, I believe. Wait, let me see. Let me do this first. All right, so let me just speak on this. So I believe they had the ability to make this world more dynamic than it did. That it was just a standard cake with good frosting on it, and that's it. And nothing much beyond that. It was a good tasting cake, great tasting cake, so on and so forth. Great frosting, but it didn't go beyond that point. It just was made and then it was finished. And that's my 6.1 right there. It didn't have much more exploration beyond that. They made this game to be a one-shot deal, and it could have been something far more than what it was. So now I'm going to go into the sixth aspect, what makes it a six. And I really should think about this because I said originally this is a 5.8 to a 6 game, and this is the reason why it would be a 6 game. Um, if you were to play in party, I mean, you have the kick ability. You could kick people from your party. If you were to play in a group setting, and I appreciate the fact that you could kick toxic people from the game, I should give it a point for that, but I'm not because sometimes when you join into the party with other people, they may hold up your party by going off and running and gunning or exploring certain aspects of the game in their own and without consideration for everyone in the party. But that's mostly due to the host himself not making himself clear that I'm just playing the game in public to play with other people. Now, if you want to do exploration, you do that independently of your own. That has nothing to do with the fault of the people who made the game. What does the fault of the people who made the game is like if you're going to consider exploration and for people playing the game solo as well as people to be in public. Um, if you're going to have a party member who's either AFK or running off and doing their own thing, and they're allowed to do so in public as well as they're allowed to do so in solo, that should not hinder their actual need for their discovery. Like if you collect that stuff belong to you, which is in the game. No other person can collect it. But the problem is when that person collects that thing in the game, whether they're in the party, whether AFK or not, and then they decide to continue forward into the game, um, that item should not automatically disappear because that other person found it. I'm not talking about puzzles. If one person discovers puzzles, they figure it out, they collect the reward. I'm talking about a plain old item that's set there to be discovered by a person and it's not something that's normally found. Um, so once someone run off, found it, that item still be in that same position for the other people in the game to find if they have not found it yet. As a discoverer, they could discover it on their own, whether they're in public or whether it's solo. And they did not do that. Not for puzzles that you have open doors on your own self on own. That should be something independent. I'm talking about for regular items. And they did not do that. Even if they hide those regular items like journals and stuff, the obvious ones that should be collectibles, especially if you're running with your friends and say, hey, come over here. There's an item to be discovered. You should be able to pick up the item as well as your friend should be able to pick up the item. If you wanted something like a puzzle to solve a challenging puzzle, the person who solved the challenging puzzle should take the item. Well, for random items, that shouldn't be the case. So that's one of the reasons I would say this is 6.1. Not for the fact that you kick people or the fact that you want to hunt or any of that stuff. That's not the fault. But the fact that standard items should be picked up by everyone. in a party, and should be shared in a group setting. It shouldn't be just one person pick up like a healing potion. It should be everyone be able to pick up that healing potion if it's something that's given. Now, if it's something that's more sparingly, I would say that could be considered as a positive thing and not make it a 6. But if it's something that's standard, that's standardly given throughout the game, that shouldn't hinder the progress of other people picking it up as well. Because one person, like say in a boss fight, can exploit picking up medicines and keep drinking it every time they get hit, not allowing everyone in the party to pick up that medication or that medicine, because that person is stingy, thus hindering the progress and fun factor of the game. That's not good. That's why I said when it comes to standard things, it should be time based. If you're not willing to give everyone all at once, it should be time based, and everyone who picks one up should be also based on the time. Like if I was to do the game solo and pick up in a boss fight, pick up a healing item, and it's time based when it could pop up again, it should be time based for everyone else, for each individual person to pick up, and it happens again. But I don't think they considered that. And maybe they did, or maybe they didn't. But from what I've seen, that if I pick up a healing item, or if I don't pick up a healing item, someone picks it up, and thus I'm out of luck. Whereas there should have been time based for each individual person within the mission to have that allow them to pick up that individual item. So that's why I would say that the game is a 6 for that factor, in and of itself. And I don't think there's anything else I could take away from it, and my discrepancy with regards to the game and the mode of the game, and my interest in the game would end at a 6 and call this a 6 all around game. But I truly believe I didn't like the fact that, and this is what took me from the 6 back down to the 5.8, 5.9 category, is that the fact that this game wasn't made 10 years ago. It wasn't made 10 years ago in the long distant future, so on and so forth. It was made like no more than 4 years ago, like 2018, 2017. And the fact that it didn't have that long distant time for them to not include these things into the game, skins and all that stuff, is a huge drawback. And I already stated I took points off for that. But I believe this. I believe it's a 5.8. It's a 5.8 because other people who reviewed the game didn't appreciate that the company didn't want to do certain things with regards to the game, or that they just forgot this game. And this game has potential. And from my understanding, from my identification towards the game, because you didn't do these things, um, it goes down to 5.9. But I already stated that before, so I would say it's my personal prejudice to keep it at a 5.8. But as standard, it's a 6 all around. And I could say maybe you can invite people to the game, but you could do that in any game. And I could say I could go back to lobby, and does the loading screen works? Does everything from the loading works? Are there any crashes and stuff? And this is why I would, when it hits down to the 5.9 range or 5.8 range, it just goes back up again because there's hardly any crashes. And yes, there are bugs present in this game, but not to the level that of certain other games. So whatever engine they were using is good. That's why I said it's a personal prejudice of mine to have it at 5.8, but it's actually an evenly 5.9, because then I'll take it back up and say, well, there weren't a lot of crashes or internal problems of the game. I found like 2 most, and that's not enough to hinder the game. In fact, that's something that's good. But then again, due to multiplayer aspects, lack of multiplayer, you can't see those cracks and crevices because there's not a lot of people play at a time to bug the game out. Um, that's why I say this falls between the 5.8, 5.9, and the 6.0. And I think um, I should actually keep it at an overall group opinion beyond myself, beyond thinking about um, what I think is good and what I think is not good, even though there's so many inclusions in the game. I believe overall this game is a 6.0. But if I was to nitpick and to find even more things, and I believe I would find more things that are wrong with this game, I would say this game as a total stays at a 5.8. So that's my opinion with regards to Strange Brigade. It's a 6.0, and I've already given everything I could possibly think of to identify why it is. From effects down to the color, down to the interactive menu, down to the use of weapons, down to the maneuvers of the characters, and all the negative things I could find with regards to the game. And I'm pretty sure I would find one or two more, and that might take it from a 6 to a 5.8. But for right now, I believe 5.8 is more of my personal prejudice towards the game. And the most accurate definition of this game is that it's a 6 game. It's a 5.9 to a 6 game. I believe it's best to say this game is a 6. Because if you love photo mode, if you love the enjoyment factor of the game, you could keep this game at a 6. So even though Metacritic has this game at a 6, I wouldn't consider it a 6. But I believe that Metacritic score of 6 is actually a group Metacritic effort, which is obviously it's a group thing. It's not one individual person. But if you want to go for an individual thought of the game, how a person who plays the game played from beginning to end, including DLC, and an individual's thought, I'll say this game is a 5.8. As a group agreement, this game is a 6.0. So that's it for Strange Brigade. I'm not saying anything else with regards to that. I'm going to erase that last video I had because I didn't include photo mode. I didn't include certain things and certain corrections I needed to make. I once stated from 0 going all the way to 10 and where it falls into that bracket. Because I don't. Sometimes I make a video and certain people they don't want to hear or myself, maybe I myself, when I go back to look at these videos, I want to actually get a lump sum of my points accuracy in just one video rather than in every single one as I play. So this is the video I made to identify all those aspects. And I really, really looked deep into everything I could find, even the gradient fills, background, 2D art, everything I could think of. And even with all that, even with the effects, the wind effects, the design, the color usage, the menus, the loading speed, I say this game still comes out to around a 6 and doesn't go beyond the 6. And in my opinion, from a single person's point of view, it's a 5.8, but as an overall opinion, it's 6. So that's it. Strange Brigade is done. I'll move on to my other game later on in the week, and that should be either Doom, Resident Evil, or Bloodbourne. But I'm not even 100% sure of that because I haven't finished Neverwinter, the DLC, the new update of Neverwinter. So it's either Doom, Resident Evil, Bloodbourne, or completing the new update of Neverwinter. Yep, I'm pretty much done with Strange Brigade. Or later on today, or maybe directly after this, Zombie Army 4. Because I just saw it popped up on my screen, Zombie Army 4 new update. So I want to see what that's about. Is it a new mode? Is it a new game mode? Or are there new skins? If it's just new skins, I'm not even going to do a video for it. But if it's a new mode, it's not just new skins or new weapons. If it's a new mode, then I'll probably do that too. Make a video of that too. Close out the day with Zombie Army 4. But I'm pretty much done with Strange Brigade. This game has incredible potential, an incredible future, and they just seem to drop the ball on certain things. And I don't know if they did a Strange Brigade 2, and they should do a Strange Brigade 2. For each of these characters, they should have them have customization, individual customer clothes that they could put on, makeup that they could put on, design stuff they could put on, customization of the weapons that they could choose, what they got attached to their weapons, how do you use the weapons, what element effects goes on weapons, and the usage of the upgrade, not something that just appear there and it gets destroyed. You keep the items as well. You don't replace them and then they get destroyed. You get to keep them and then use them for other things as well. So they have this game has the potential to be fleshed out. And why they never did it, why they decided to just do a one-shot, one-kill game, I guess they just needed the money for other things that they plan to do, so they decided to make this game. But it has potential, and they have the ability to do it, but they didn't do it. So it shows why this game falls into this 5-6 bracket and doesn't go into the 7, 8, 9, or 10 bracket, and that's evident on their execution, their marketing, and I guess free sponsorship that they could have done, but they didn't do so. So that's their deal. So Strange Brigade is a good game, slightly above average game, but not slightly above average bad. Slightly above average very good. Very well done cake, very well done frosting. Just not exceptional cake and not exceptional frosting. That's the only way I could describe it. It's a great cake, but not exceptional in the least. Did what it was supposed to do, had very few pitfalls, but had a great execution towards the end. Just not exceptional. That falls into those Warframe, I guess Doom, Resident Evil don't fall into those categories. It doesn't have those things yet. It has the potential to be in those levels, those categories, those type of things, or those adventure games that are better adventure games like Tomb Raider. It has the ability to be like a Tomb Raider, like a group Tomb Raider with 4 people. Strange Brigade group team later, group team Tomb Raider, or great traversal, holding on to things, fighting for their life, interactive, I guess, quick time events when they're needed. There's no quick time events in this game. And I guess I could see that's the reason why I would keep it at 5.8. Because there are no quick time events and there's no hanging off wall events. Like certain things that you do at adventure, like swing from on ropes and certain things, adventurers should do, they don't do. Like many things adventurers would do if they're in adventurous survival using foods, certain things. These are survivalists and they're adventurers and survivalists. The survival aspect of the game is missing, so that's why I can't keep it at a 6. But in my personal opinion, it should be at a 5.8. And I'll keep it at a 5.8, my personal opinion, but as an overall agreement with everyone, it's a 6. But for me, it's a 5.8. And that's it for Strange Brigade. No more Strange Brigade. I'll do this on my own time.